Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update from AGM Markets. Today is the 13th of January 2013. What we'll do today is go through some technical analysis on Euro, Cable, Dollar, Swiss, Aussie and Gold. Just to go through some technical analysis, sort of review what's been going on in the markets, and just look at any sort of interesting setups that are out there on the charts. And yeah, so for any new followers out there, we have 3 moving averages in each of these charts. The red one is a 50 simple moving average, the purple is 100 simple, and the gold is a 200 simple. I will not make any trade calls recommendations in this video. You trade at your own risk. If you could please read our full disclaimer on our website, which is www.agmmarkets.com. Okay, let's have a look at the euro dollar. So yeah, for each of these charts, we'll start off with the daily and sort of scale down if there's any sort of shorter, sort of interesting setups. Or things to sort of keep an eye on, but yeah, the daily is the main one really that we'll sort of focus on. So yeah, what has been going on? I mean, let's have a quick look at the weekly. So last week's weekly candle, fairly bullish actually on the euro. Got a bit of lower wick there, sort of hammer formation, and that's obviously what week are we now into the? So this is the 3rd week now into the new year. But yeah, in terms of this weekly, so it's still all about really. I mean, this is the first sort of fib setup that I'm sort of focusing on. It's good to just keep it in mind for the sort of the overall context. You've got the 50% here, which is also previous support, and also the 200 SMAs lining up with that. So keep an eye out on that. Let's just flip it to the daily. The daily, you can see that a little bit clearer as well. I mean, the fib's been really interesting on the euro, especially last year, because obviously this is the first webinar of this new year, so you might have a quick recap. This was a lovely move here. We spoke about that one before, off the 50% rotated higher, and if you extended that fib up to this high here, you can see we've got a lovely bounce off that 50% as well. So really technical stuff there. So now really, I mean, because that high, it got broken, but it didn't really close, we didn't have a daily close above, so this is the sort of main fib that's in place. It's just all about just extended the high up, but a lot of people will be focusing on this move here, and that's sort of come into the play over the last sort of week or two. It's been a little bit messy around this area, but it's still sort of playing out. So in terms of a long setup, buyers coming in at sort of 50%, sort of 61.8% range area. Also, what levels that as well that we came in off of? Yeah, the sort of 35.50s level, 35.50s, 35.60s. That's a decent sort of support. You can also see it as a slight resistance here as well. In the month of September last year, key resistance turned into new support, and you can see the bulls are trying to grind this one higher to take out these highs up here at one sort of 38.89s. If we scale down now and look at the sort of 4 hour, the bears will be interested in this one as a sort of a shorter term fib move from the highs in December to the lows in January. It's kind of looking like it wants to sort of grind up towards this 50%, although it's getting a little bit stuck at these moving averages at the minute. But if we do get higher, then keep an eye on this 50% level here, which is at one spot 37.20s. That should be quite an interesting level of resistance there. If we do get there, of course, it doesn't have to. And if you sort of scale it down to the 1 hour, then the buyers will be looking at this one here, I'd have thought. This fib here from the lows to these highs here. If it's, I mean, it looks like it wants to trace down here. It should be an interesting level because it's a previous. I'll just zoom in a bit actually. Previous spike resistance here, and also resistance around here. So it could be previous resistance now acting as a new support at one spot 36.17s there. So keep an eye out on that one. That should be quite an interesting one going into this week or today, tomorrow even. It could come down there. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of euro really. We've gone down from the daily 4 hour and daily 4 hour and 1 hour there, and that's pretty much all the setups I'm personally looking at. Nothing else majorly of interest on this chart. I mean, actually, you can look at this one here. Pardon me there. This fib here, is that the same one? Yeah, that's the same one. Sorry, what am I talking about? Yeah, so you can see that fib clearer even in the 4 hour there, but it's still been a little bit messy. You normally get a decent spikes off this 50%, but it came back below, and it's just playing as a sort of support level really. Yeah, these sort of 135, 60s. That's the key sort of line in the sand for the supports really. And if you're looking at sort of round numbers, keep an eye out on the 137s. I mean, we spoke about the 137.20s, which was that 50% level. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. That's the sort of the shorter term range area, definitely for Euro, I think. So, right, let's have a look at the cable chart. So a brief look at the weekly. So the weekly is starting to sort of top out, I think, at what is the level we've got here. Yeah, the one sort of, let's just call it 165s really. It's catching a bit of resistance on the weekly. We've had well, a couple of candle spikes above and closes below. You can also see its previous resistance around this area here to the left. So yeah, I mean, it's been a very strong uptrend all the way throughout 2013. And it looks like it could get halted, although last week's weekly candle was fairly bullish. Some said it would be a sort of continuation pattern with a lower wick there and decent upper body, but I don't know, it needs to pose a weekly close above these 165s in my opinion for it to keep on grinding higher. And I'd say the odds are will be for some sort of retracement, especially going to the start of the year. The next few weeks I'd have thought it would retrace down, perhaps towards these moving averages here, or this would be a big fib a lot of the long-term players will be looking at, and that 50% comes at the 157s. But of course we're still a long way away from that, but retracements can happen quite fast, and keep that in mind. In terms of the daily, it's still that's still the same sort of move really. Yeah, that's the same fib there. So if you draw from that low to the low of the chart to the high, and that's that same move there. So you can see it a little bit clearer. And in terms, I mean, it's been a fairly messy chart, not amazing. But in terms, let's look at the shorter term time frames. Actually, on this 4 hour, we do have an uptrend support here, which is currently playing out, and also there's 200 SMA is supporting it quite nicely. But the shorter term play is all about just playing the levels really. So you've got the 165s. Let's have a look at the 164s as well. Some key action there last week, the sort of NFP spikes. If you flip to the 1 hour, you can see that there, clean spike below, came back up. So you can see just chopping there. This was NFP day on Friday. The 164s in between 165s, just lovely bounce to a clear spike below there, and it came back up, clear spike high above that, and came back down. So yeah, 164s, 165s is a key sort of range for this week. Closes either side should determine direction. If we close below those, significant sort of close below, then this would be a key fib that a lot of people will be looking out for, I'd have thought. The 50% comes at the 1.6227 there, and surprise, surprise, you can see its key previous support there as well. So that should be an interesting one to look out for on the cable. In terms of the 1 hour, where we've just spoken about the 1 hour is, it's all about the 164s, 165s. There's no sort of key fibs there, although this one here, I think, yeah, that was a nice one last week. So you can see I've drawn that fib from the high of January to the current lows of January. We've got a lovely action at 61.8% retracement, and is 1.65, so that was on NFP day on Friday. Okay, then that's cable done. Let's have a look at the dollar Swiss. So a brief look at this weekly. The weekly's been quite a messy one. Nothing major of interest. I'm not going to analyse it actually. Let's look at the daily. Daily's a much better chart. We spoke about these last year. These dips been playing out really nicely. So that was the first one there. We had off the 50% retracement, and then if you extended the low down, and then if you took the high from that next swing, key obvious swing high. Now we had a nice bounce of the 61.8% retracement, and then if you extend it even lower down, Then you can see last week we've had in fact, there's the daily, daily chart last week we had a nice bounce off that 50% retracement to the pip, nice reversal candle, bearish engulfing candle, and we're starting to grind low a bit, but we're currently getting supported at this 50-day moving average, you can see here, so we need to close below that for it to continue to grind low. But that's been a nice technical chart, this daily chart, just sort of about just playing the fibs and playing the key swing highs here, just playing it as a downtrend really. In terms of the 4-hour chart, the bulls will be looking at this fib, I'd have thought. It's this one here, from that low of the sort of 26th of December to the high of around the 8th of January. If it keeps on coming low, then keep an eye out on this 50% retracement here, which stands at the 0.8962s. Could get an interesting, it should be an interesting area of support if we do get down there. I think it is currently looking like it wants to come down there, I reckon. And yeah, in terms of the 1 hour, it's going to be the same thing really. So yeah, the 4 hour and the 1 hour is the same sort of same things I'm personally looking at, and I think a lot of other people will be looking at as well. So all about that fib. It's probably easy to look at the 1 hour really, because it's just the low of the chart to the high of the chart. Keep it nice and simple. Okay, at Swissy, let's have a look at the Aussie dollar. The Aussie, I've left the same chart as we had going to the end of last year, because nothing has changed on this daily. We've spoken about this lovely fib for a long time here. We put the low in, came back up, lovely daily reversal candle off this 50% retracement. We grinded lower and pretty much took out this 0% line. But you can now see that the 0% line is now acting as the key line in the sand, the key support. We've had a couple of spikes below this level, closes above, a couple of nice reversal candles, and it's sort of grinding higher now. Currently testing this 50-day moving average, but it's getting above it. I think we'll keep on grinding higher and perhaps test this sort of the 200-day moving average, or the or even the 100-day moving average as well. And the next fib I'd personally be looking out for on this daily. So we've got that low in. So let's just put the low to the actual low there. It's all about this fib here, I think. A lot of people looking at, I'd have thought the 50% comes in at 0.9288 then. Also you can see we've got these moving averages around here as well, so could get a decent bit of confluence there. And also if you zoom, I'm going to zoom in actually, you can see this 50% was a previous support level around here. We had a couple of spikes there where the 100-day moving average also got a little bounce up, so it could be a sort of previous support turn into new resistance there, so keep an eye out on that one there. It should be an interesting level. But of course it could keep on just grinding back up higher and then retest this bigger 50%, because it's technically putting a double bottom here, and then there's nothing sort of stopping it forming another double top here around this level here. We had a previous bounce off of, which is at the 0.97s. Okay, that's a forex done. Let's have a look at the gold chart. Gold's been quite a disappointing chart. I think it hasn't been that interesting last year. I mean, it's just been sliding lower, but it hasn't been amazingly technical. There hasn't been very that many nice fibs, I don't think. In terms of the daily, we've spoken about. I think we spoke about this key. Yeah, we have this key support here. The sort of the low prints of last year, the 1188s. That's the key support in gold. But in terms of the fibs, we had this one here actually, and this is quite a fairly nice move last year, but it hasn't really spiked off of one of these levels to the pip. It's sort of playing in the sort of range, the 50%, 61.8% range. Sellers came in, brought that down. The next one I'd personally be looking out for on this daily chart, if you're a daily chart fan, would be this one here. So just bringing the lows down. The high would be off this this previous swing high. The recent swing high, and the 50% comes in at the 1271s, and also interestingly it sort of lines up with the 100-day moving average as well, so you could get a decent bit of confluence there. Should get some interesting price action if it grinds higher, which I think it will, because Aussie's grinding higher as well, so I wouldn't be surprised to see gold grind higher as well. Obviously Aussie's obviously a commodity linked currency, and both look to be grinding higher there. In terms of the shorter term moves, I mean, let's have a look at the 4 hour here. the 4 hour, this is a sort of fib that played out last week. I think that wasn't an NFP day, but there's a lovely spike lower there, pretty much off the 50% to the pip, and it sort of rotated higher. We had some nice support off these moving averages here. As you can see on this 4 hour chart, so a nice bit of support for the 100 hour there, and then this 50 hour moving average pretty much just supporting it all the way up. In terms of sort of 1 hour plays, I'd have thought they'd be looking at this fib here. So it's a much shorter term fib. The 50% comes at 12.35, so you can also see its previous resistance as well, which could act as new support. This 61.8% is also previous support as well. We've got the moving averages floating around here as well, so you could get some interesting price action at these two levels here this week if we do continue to grind lower here and retrace. But there's obviously nothing stopping it grinding higher. As you can see, if you look to the left here, we're sort of testing previous resistance, which could end up as being new support here. But I'd say the odds would be for a more of a healthier trace when we're down towards this sort of smaller 50% here on this 1 hour chart. Okay, then that's all for today. Hope you found that video useful. If there's any other pairs that you want to have a look at next week, then feel free to comment under the YouTube video, which I'll post up. Or feel free to send us a tweet to our Twitter feed, which is at AGM Markets. Hope you have a great rest of the week trading, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching.